The night was dark and stormy in the city of Havenville, the perfect setting for what was about to unfold. Jane had just finished working the late shift at the diner and was walking home alone in the deserted streets. She had always been taught to be cautious, but tonight she felt even more uneasy than usual. The howling wind and the sound of raindrops hitting the pavement intensified her anxiety. As she neared her apartment building in the downtown area, she saw a man standing in the shadows, watching her. Her heart pounded as she quickened her pace, but the man followed. She could hear his footsteps getting closer and closer. Suddenly, he lunged at her from behind and wrapped his arms around her waist. She screamed, but he clamped his hand over her mouth, muffling her cries for help. Jane struggled with all her might, but the man was too strong. He lifted her off the ground and carried her to a waiting van parked on the side of the road. Inside, she saw 3 other girls, all bound and gagged. They looked terrified, and their eyes were pleading for help. Jane tried to scream again, but the man hit her and warned her to be silent. For days, Jane and the other girls were held captive in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. They were tormented and tortured by their captors, who were faceless and ruthless. They were stripped of their identities and forced to be obedient slaves, made to do unspeakable things against their will. Every day was a nightmare, and the girls began to lose hope of ever being rescued. One day, a new girl was brought in. Her name was Emily, and she was different from the others. She was fearless, and she refused to be broken. She quickly realized that the only way to survive was to outsmart their captors. She began to plot their escape, and she involved the other girls in her plan. Despite the risks, they executed their plan flawlessly. They overpowered their captors and fled into the night. They ran for miles, through forests and fields, not stopping until they were sure they were safe. But their freedom came at a cost. The girls were never the same again. The trauma and fear had scarred them for life. In the end, Jane and the other girls were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. They were haunted by the memories of their captivity and the horrors they endured. They had escaped the clutches of their captors, but the nightmare would never truly be over. The scars were not only physical, but mental, and they would take years to heal. The girls would never forget the experience and would always be looking over their shoulders, wondering if their captors would come back for them.